have no idea why. Anyway, I want to share with you the source sheet that we're going to use today. I'm going to give you a little bit of review about why this course exists, even though I know most of you can sort of figure that out. And then I will also, I'll share the source sheet, but if you want to print it off, that would be, I think that would be great. Pardes created this really interesting 6-part curriculum on how Judaism really approaches the whole idea of conflict, differences of opinion, how those are reconciled. Absolutely Judaism favors complexity over, simplicity. There's never right or wrong. And in the sources that we looked at the last time, hang on for a second. Bear with me. I'm just a second. Thank you. The way that our conversation in the world, particularly on social media, has been reduced to a boom statement with no nuance and no recognition of what the face of the person writing that looks like, or who's on the other side of that conversation, or what they might bring to the table in that moment, it just makes it impossible to have any kind of depth of learning or conversation when everything's reduced to a tweet or an Instagram page. So they really understood that, and particularly in the tension-filled world that we live in now, it's not taking advantage of this magnificent opportunity that Judaism affords all of us. So what we looked at last time we were together was the idea that, and in fact, I'm going to call up a source from the last thing, just so that you're all with this program, and then we'll go into today's material. And this class will go till probably about 10:40, so we'll still have an hour together. So hang on for a second.
Rabbi, just a quick question. What I look at in the chat, I can't figure out how to get to the source material from that.
So when you click it, it doesn't come up?
I haven't been successful with that.
And when I click it, it wouldn't come up either.
Okay. So that's not good. So let's
Me neither.
Marcia, you gave us a download, is what the link was, a download, not from your resources, as opposed to
it's in black rather than blue.
No, okay. So let's just look at this one source.
I'll take care of the heat and check you
And
later.
can you all see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is Midrash Psalms, and this is the whole premise of how this entire curriculum, the premise is based on this. Rabbi Abahu said in the name of Rabbi Yonatan, Rabbi Akiva had a distinguished disciple, and Rabbi Meir was his name. And he would prove the purity of a reptile from the Bible with 49 reasons. And he would prove the impurity with 49 reasons. So Rabbi Chia taught, Rabbi Meir had one student, and Simchas was his name, and he would prove the purity of the reptile from the Bible with 49 reasons and prove its impurity with 49 reasons. And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, young students, in the name of Shaul, David and Samuel knew how to study Torah with 49 reasons to rule a matter impure and 49 reasons to rule the same matter pure. And it's you're kind of like, what? Like, what does that really mean? And, we're not going to focus on this text today, but to recap it for you, said simply, the idea that any argument, it's the debate team, and you're given a debate and you have to debate even a thing that you don't agree with, right? That was the wonderful thing about the art of debate, that there are many sides to every story, many ways to look at a set of facts and a scenario that's unfolded before you. And Judaism really appreciates the idea that people can reason in so many different ways. Is it important at some point when a decision has to be made that the most reasoned argument wins? Yes. But is it a guarantee that your argument is the most reasoned argument? Absolutely not. And the thing that's most beautiful is if you look at this, it says, they use the word panim. It says, V'haya lo Rabbi Meir, v'sumchos shemo, v'haya mitahar et hasharetz, and this student could prove the purity of the reptile, min haTorah, in 49 panim, with 49 faces. It doesn't say 49 reasons. There's a million other words it could use, but the idea that it's faces, one of the things that Judaism has really emphasized with this thing is that every argument has a face. Every person who has opinion has a face. They're not a tweet. They're not someone you can't see. And the idea is to recognize that there are people behind, even, people that we won't disagree with, but they're people, and that they have eyes and souls. And so the focus on panim is what's so beautiful here. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share because now we're going to work on today's topic, which is when do you agree to meet with someone who you're going to have a tension-filled encounter with, and when don't you do that? And what does the Bible have to say about that? So hang on a second. I'm going to let this go and go to the other source sheet that unfortunately couldn't open up.
We just read that with Jacob, when he meets with his brother, and he has reinforcements, 2 different ones, so he's prepared. That's when he meets with his brother. Yes.
But the most important thing, based upon what you said, Rosalie, is that he was willing to meet with his brother.
That was the most important, yeah.
What he didn't say was, that guy tried to kill me 20 years ago. I ain't going near him. Forget it. You know what I'm saying? He didn't say that. Yeah. Did he need all of that backup? Hard to know. Was he afraid rightly? Sounds like Esau wasn't exactly comfortable with it either. You know what I'm saying? Because he came with sort of a band of people as well. But this curriculum is, so meet and refuse to meet. And it begins with this question, Ibayalahu. A question was asked in the Beit Midrash. When do we agree to meet with our political adversaries, and when do we refuse? And so we're actually going to look at a story in the book of Numbers. I don't know. I assume all of you are fairly well versed in Torah lore. And if not, I will just say that in the book of Numbers, we're sort of in that very pivotal moment of desert living when the people of Israel can either make some good choices and go right into the promised land after, with less than 2 years after leaving Egypt, or they can really act abysmally, and God will realize that this is a people not ready to go conquer a foreign land, which is going to require a lot of faith and a lot of confidence. So he's like, no, you're going to wander for 40 years. And while they're in the 40 years, there's a lot of fighting going on. And Datan and Abiram are one of several rebellions against Moses as they're wandering in the desert. And we're going to look at two interpretations of the same text. One from, I love that they bring this because an interpretation, a translation can radically change how you understand a story. I know you know that, but it's right here in front of us. So we have Numbers from the JPS translation and then one from the Art Scroll. And there will be a bias in how the translation is manifest. So I'm making this bigger. Whoop. And I want to invite Donna, would you like to read for us from Numbers the story of Korah? Go ahead.
Okay, although maybe not me, I have COVID, and so I don't have a good voice.
Oh, do you want to not read? If you don't, I don't mind your voice. It sounds good enough to me. But I mean, do you want me to ask something else?
Well,
Okay.
I mean, I don't think I sound clear enough.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. No problem. So, Michelle, can you see this? Would you like to read for us?
Yeah, the Numbers one on the left.
Yes, please.
Okay. Now Korah, son of Izhar, son of Kohat, son of Levi, betook himself along with Datan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Pelet, descendants of Reuben, to rise up against Moses, together with 250 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, men of repute. Moses sent for Datan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, but they said, "We will not come. Is it not enough that you brought us from a land flowing with milk and honey to have us die in the wilderness, that you would also lord it over us? Even if you had brought us to a land flowing with milk and honey and given us possession of fields and vineyards, should you gouge out those men's eyes? We will not come." Moses was much aggrieved, and he said to the Lord, "Pay no regard to their oblation. I have not taken the ass of any one of them, nor have I wronged any one of them."
Okay. So before we look at this other translation, share with me some of your thoughts. What are some of the questions that arrive that come up just from looking at this text? By the way, what we would do in a different setting is that I would break you up into chavruta, but there's 11 of us, so we're going to sort of have our chavruta together. I'd love to know, you can press the hand raise thing or just, I can't see everybody. So if you can, but does anybody have any thoughts? What stands out to you? I will share that what stands out to me, first of all, okay, I'll just say this. Well, go ahead, Sylvia, and then I'll say what I was thinking.
There we go. Thanks. First thing that stands out to me is the first thing that happens is they're about to get to where they're going, and 200 men rise up against Moses. Now there's a total rebellion going on because I don't know, because they're afraid to go, or I don't know what reason. So that it's interesting.
Okay. That's true. What was going on that led them to feel like this was something that that had to happen? So that's a question. One of the other things that's noted is that we meet at the beginning. We meet Korah. We know that there's a rebellion there, and we meet Datan and Abiram, and we know there's a rebellion there. And you can kind of get a sense that they're two separate people. And notice what Moses does in verse 12. Vayishlach Moshe likro lidatan ve'la'aviram b'nei Eliav. Okay, he did not send for Korah. He only sent for Datan and Abiram. Right? And so why do you think that is? Anybody, any thoughts on that? Why just those two and not Korah? Ria?
You're on mute, Ria.
Okay, sorry. The Korah incident happens after this because Korah is still alive. So Korah is maybe a stronger group, a better leader. So he's trying to, if I were doing this, I would go to the people the leaders who seem to be more, not necessarily pliable, but more able to talk to them and be able to get them to stop rebelling or complaining, to have a reasonable conversation. So either he doesn't think it would do any good to talk to Korah, or he doesn't want to deal with Korah because he doesn't like him. There's all kinds of things, but it is where he's separating the three into two and leaving Korah out. So Korah incident happens later, and is this a setup to undermine Korah? That's another thought. So anyway, that's it.
Right. I mean, first of all, you articulated exactly what I was thinking, Rhea, is that Moses obviously felt that there might be some headway if he's able to have a face-to-face with Datan and Abiram, and Korah not so much. So let's start where we think we can make some progress. It's, that's absolutely right. So, and great insight, Jack.
So in light of what you were talking earlier about the political arguments and when to have the argument and when not, you notice in verse 1, the text goes out of its way to tell us their lineage. And in fact, Korah is Moses' relative. And it could be that you don't start out having these interactions with your relatives. It's maybe too close. And he starts with somebody where there isn't a blood relative relationship.
Also, a great insight, and it's making me think of a couple times in my life, just, and personally, and I'm sure we've all thought about that when, I've been invited to go to sort of help mediate in a family, just something was going on, because it was easier to hear stuff from me than an immediate family. That's really also a wonderful insight. So just because I want to really, there's so much fabulous material here. We have an hour. So Jack, I'm going to ask you to read and pay attention, everybody, to the differences in the translation, because that actually does make a difference about how the translator understands what the word vayishlach actually means. So go ahead, read from the art scroll.
Korah, son of Yitzchar, son of Kohat, son of Levi, separated himself with Datan and Abiram, sons of Eliav, and On, son of Pelet, the offspring of Reuven. They stood before Moses with 250 men from the children of Israel, leaders of the assembly, those summoned for meeting, men of renown. Moses sent forth to summon Datan and Abiram, the sons of Eliav, but they said, "We shall not go up. Is it not enough that you have brought us up from a land flowing with milk and honey to cause us to die in the wilderness? Yet you seek to dominate us, even to dominate further. Moreover, you did not bring us to a land flowing with milk and honey, nor give us a heritage of field and vineyard. Even if you would gouge out the eyes of those men, we shall not go up." This distressed Moses greatly, and he said to Hashem, "Do not turn to their gift offering. I have not taken even a single donkey of theirs, nor have I wronged even one of them."
Okay. So first of all, before I share anything, did you notice a difference? The verse that's really the one that we're focused on is verse 12, when it says Moses sent forth either, he either sent for these guys, like, "Hey, would you come to my tent?" Or he summoned them, and once they said, "We will not come, we will not go up." So what's the difference between going up, which is literally more little, lo na'aleh, maybe Moses's tent was on a hill, that could be interesting, or, but really, what is the difference between sending for and summoning someone? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Yes, Michelle.
Well, summoning is much stronger. You send for someone, go bring Rosalie. We're having dinner now, and summoning is like, come now. It seems like you get a summons to go to court, or you're being divorced, or whatever you're getting.
Right. That's exactly. So depending on how you interpret vayishlach, it's either an invitation or it's kind of like an order. And there's a big difference between that. Any other thoughts? Okay, so here's what's going to happen. And we're going to look at some questions that they present. It's really such interesting material. Okay. So first, what they would have wanted you to do, but we're not going to, I mean, I'm teaching this a little bit differently than this class could be taught if it was, if it was a fixed group of, but anyway, the background is one pillar of the Beit Midrash Way is the ability to be aware of our own biases, or how our own 49 reasons lead us to interpret a particular text or conflict the way we do. We have to be able to look at ourselves. Very often people will write intuitive interpretations on social media, contributing to the text of the conflict. So as my beloved husband knows, I'm not part of the social media tweet world, but I'm an exception to the rule. And that's been one of the great death knells to healthy public discourse, when that's a standard way of connecting. So what they wanted you to all do, and I'm just going to have you think about this. Everybody gets like I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to think about this. But if you'd been an Israelite in the desert and you were watching Datan and Aviram refuse to accept the invitation of Moses to meet, how would you have tweeted that? What kind of people were Datan and Aviram and Moses? Right? Just knowing what you know about Moses, how do you understand Moses's intention in inviting them to meet, and then the other guys refusing to do so? So I'm just, I'm going to give you like literally, it's like I'm going to count to 30, but think about what you might say, and hopefully a couple of you will have something to share. I don't know if any of you tweet or not. I know Scott tweets.
I just got off of Twitter though. I'm now on Post.
So, and again, if this kind of opportunity doesn't fully resonate, but I'd love to know if anybody has.
Marcia, I can't get it to type.
Oh no, you don't type in here. Just write it on a piece of paper. This is because I'm sharing this.
Oh, okay.
And again, we don't have all the facts, right? We didn't hear the tone in Moses's voice, did we? There's a lot of things we didn't know. We don't know about previous conversations they may have had. We don't know if as they were, and while you're doing this, my computer's about to die, so I'm going to get my battery. Keep those tweets coming. I'll be right back. Okay, we'll take just two tweets about the situation without having any of the real inner knowledge about what's going on. Anyone want to share? Don't tell me. I have no tweets. Okay.
If you have Rhea and you have Sylvia.
Oh, okay, Sylvia, go ahead.
First. Well, okay, actually Rhea was first, but I can go if you like. Okay, Moses wants to meet. What could he want? We will not go. We will not meet him. Here we've been in the wilderness for 40 years listening. And what is the result? Nothing.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm thinking about watching Meghan and Harry. And so my tweet is, Abiram goes it alone, the beginning of separating from the firm.
Wow. Interesting. Very clever. I mean, both really very clever, Rhea.
And also I won't go use tweet because of that, you know who.
Yes, right. This curriculum was done long before he purchased the.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So So personal reflection, we can think about, would your tweet be more pro-Moses or anti-Datan and Aviram, or the other way? So, but we're gonna move beyond. So understanding the 49 versus 49 conflicting interpretations of the facts of the biblical story. How did the following commentators understand Moses' intention in inviting Datan and Aviram to meet, and the reasons for doing so, right? And you'll find that we all have a commentator who thinks the way we do, but because we all think differently, and that's what's so exciting about studying Torah. So, Ria, do you want to read what Rashi had to say? Do you see? I think you're on mute. Ria, are you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, I wasn't. Okay. Moses sent. From here, we derive that one should not persist in a dispute, a mahloket, because Moses sought them out to conciliate them by peaceful words. Oh,
Right. So Rashi interprets this gesture as Moses didn't just say, well, ground swallow them up. He was like, no, I'm not. I'm going to go talk to these guys. That's a very interesting, and generous way to consider. Any other thoughts about Rashi's interpretation before we look at some others? Did other people think that way? Jack, you didn't. What are your thoughts about why Moses reached out?
No, I think this is giving Moses more of the benefit of the doubt than I would have from the text alone. Moses could have gone to them. Sending for somebody just already sounds like a hierarchical system that is exacerbating the problem.
Oh, fascinating. Yes.
Or you know what? Or he could have said, come over, let's have a cup of coffee together at my tent.
It's two ways of looking at it. It's fascinating because then the whole setup is different. If you want to meet with your congressman, the likelihood that they would come over to your house is less, but they might say, I'd love to see you in my office, because that's where they meet with people. And, my assistants can take notes and whatever. So it, it's two ways of seeing that. But Jack, if Moses didn't want to be seen in the way that, what was the situation? Great point. Sylvia, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did. I think that speaks to the two different in translations. If we look at the Art Scroll, and he says he summoned them, and I was reading the Art Scroll, and I was one of them, I would say, I'm not going there. He's lording it over us, which is probably why my reaction was like that. But if I was looking at the JPS, I might have said, well, maybe he wants to have a cup of coffee and talk to us about it.
So, or somewhere in between, because again, sometimes it's often not even what the message is, but how it's delivered. Meaning, if someone says, Moses would like to see you right now, that's very different than if, the nuance of communication is also very, very important. Even thinking about the Parsha last week when Jacob sends some people to go give a message to Esau, and they don't say, all they come back and they don't say he's so excited to see you. What they say is he's coming with 400 men and like cavalry. And he's like, oh, no way. Like, oh my God, he's going to kill me. They could have given him a different report. So sometimes not having enough information is not helpful. And that's why, again, speaking in clips is not good for healthy discourse. Let's look at what Rashbam said about this. Susan, can you read what Rashbam said? This is Rashi's grandson.
And they said, we will not go up to you for judgment. The language of going up is often said in the context of going to judges. And
so they give the proof text.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so that's actually a really interesting thing to know. Now, the question is, was it in their mind that they were going up? They said, we're not going up. Moses didn't say, get up here, right? He said, I'd like to talk to you. So it was already, there was already a sense of closure in their mind about what this was going to be about. What was that really going to look like? And just other thoughts about this before we move on. Dad?
First of all, I'm going to excuse myself shortly because the hearings are going on shortly. So if you'll forgive me, but I did have a comment on one of your earlier questions, and that is, what is the difference between send and summons? And to me, the word summons suggests it's an invitation, and it is not a mandate. And I think there's maybe a nuanced distinction between the two words, but summons suggests that he's willing to listen. And sent is an absolute term.
Oh, that's so interesting, Dad, because I just want to say the way sort of the leaders at Pardes understand this is that summon is much more legal and formal and abiding than sending an invitation. I understand that you're at, and what's really fascinating about how you understand those two words, that even there, you know, we're in the 49 and 49. You don't even understand the translation words the same way that the creators of this program do. They see summons as much harsher than send. And, you know, so that's quite interesting. Any thoughts about that? Okay, so I'm glad you're going to go watch. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Scott has his hand up.
Oh, Scott.
Yes, I have my hand up. So yeah, I kind of, it's interesting that my father-in-law, who's a very accomplished attorney, would see it that way, because I would think of a summon as sort of a legal, you know, command, right? Your summon, like, but a sent would be sort of a more informal invitation. So, but whatever, either way, I think what Asher is saying is that one form is a invitation which implies a conversation, and the other one is a command. And I'm definitely not an attorney, so I wouldn't know what I'm talking about.
But by the way, and that doesn't mean, by the way, if there was a command that there couldn't still be a conversation as part of it, but it's much less, it feels less equal. It feels like, let's sit down and have a tete-a-tete. But Scott, I'm going to invite you to read he's my favorite commentator. Shimshon Raphael Hirsch was absolutely, without a doubt, the first conservative rabbi, such a brilliant guy. And look what he has to say. Go ahead.
You want me to read it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Hirsch, numbers 16,
That's fine.
12.
Let's read the text.
Sent to call to. In no way does this verse involve a dictatorial order coming from a superior, but rather it is used to designate a friendly invitation. See, for example, in Bamidbar 25, Shemot. But going up is especially used for going to a court of law. Moses, in the most friendly way, had asked them to come to him, but they took the invitation as a summons and answered, "We are not coming up to my Lord," i.e., we do not take orders from him. It is a presumption on his part to order us about from above to come to him. We do not go up to him.
Whoa, right? Like, what do you think of that?
Can I just comment real quick on this?
Please.
Because relating to something I was thinking about, the whole exercise of tweeting. And so much of social media is not about being analytical or seeking to see a wider lens and how we look at social reality or political reality. It's about performing a position, you know, like saying, I am with you. This is my position. I'm aligned with this person. I'm aligned with that person. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican, whatever it might be. and I'm signaling what side I'm on. And I think, this underneath that is a lot of ego and a lot of concern with self and what self appears like to the rest of the world, and trying to get followers and likes and all of that stuff. When I really think that what it does is it erodes the body politic more generally, because it's not about seeking truth, which is the study of Torah in the truest sense of the word. At least my understanding of it is, and why we want multiple perspectives in a study, why we don't study alone as much as but we do chavruta, is that we're seeking out truth because we get conflicting and different perspectives, so we learn. But that's not what social media is about. Social media is not about learning. It's about commanding, right? In this way, about ego. And that's what this is implying. These guys are offended that how dare he order me, right? It's their egos that are involved. And Moses is really not about ego. He's just trying to organize the Jewish people.
Beautifully said. And beautifully, I mean, go ahead, Susan, and then I have a thought to respond to Scott. Go ahead.
I think that the issue of social media, including email and texting, is that you don't hear the tone of voice. And something might be said tongue in cheek or in some other way, and it gets misconstrued quickly. And before you know it, you're off in the wrong direction.
100%.
Think about the things that we've all said when we've been so deeply aggrieved or so deeply upset, or what we're talking about is not only just what we're talking about, but also has a history. Like, right, we're people. And what you say, Susan, is so important, because you could say, I mean, just think of the words, you're pretty. You look pretty today. I mean, what's the difference between, oh, you look pretty today, and you look pretty today, or you look pretty today? Yeah, I mean, what I'm just saying, I mean, but same three words. I mean, that's a silly exercise, but you understand? I mean, that's right. What I think is fascinating, though, is that what we as the Bible readers bring to the table, what we know about Moses and the little that we know about the people that are rising up against him. We know nothing about Datan and Abiram. We don't know their history. We don't know if they're good parents. We don't know how old they are. We don't know anything about them. Are they musicians? Nothing. We know more about Moses. So what Hirsch's view actually really is he's bringing to the table the fact that we feel closer to Moses. We need Moses. He's our leader. And we want to assume, by the way, this is the same with Israel. We really wanted to assume for many, many, many decades that Israel would never really do the wrong thing to hurt anybody, because it's Israel, right? There's a lot of people in Israel who wouldn't want to do the wrong thing to hurt anybody, but maybe there's people in Israel who kind of don't care now. We have to be able to say, okay, so, maybe, we bring our Moses. No one ever, think about the end of the Torah. No one like Moses ever lived who knew God face to face. Speaking of face to face, you know what I'm saying? So it's hard to give Datan and Abiram a fair shot because we know nothing about them. I just, I'm putting that out there.
No,
Any thoughts? So are we ready to go on? Because there's a lot more.
I just want to say something that I want to say something that I saw today. I've always been fascinated with the word aliyah, and I just learned today with that going to court uses the root of aliyah, meaning it's the highest place. And that was just an excitement for me that I wanted to share, because it means going up to God.
Right. And did you put that together from the word and from this little session today, that kind of na'aleh, going up?
Yes.
Oh, cool. I'm so happy for you, Rosalie. That's beautiful. Okay, we're going to skip the But I just want to say, I just want to give a lot, we're not going to do this next thing, but I just wanted to give you a taste of the full curriculum. Another pillar of the Beit Midrash Way is the ability to understand contradictory interpretations of texts, as well as ideological and political issues today. This has been referred to in short as the 49 versus 49. That's, it was very hard for me to understand that lingo, but, 50 is complete, but 49 means that you still have a little room open to change your mind, right? That's what it's about. That even though we have our biases, that we're still open to hearing and learning. And more precisely in rabbinic literature, it's 49 panim or faces. Why a matter may be understood in contradictory ways. So in this next exercise, they wanted to connect the multidimensional contradictory faces of the book with the too often singular dimension of Facebook. We're skipping that. We're moving on. So this was something that I'd be interested. I don't know. I mean, this gets a little personal, but we should talk about it too, even with what's going on right now today. Can you think of examples where this unit's question, when do you agree to go meet with somebody, or shut them out, comes up today in politics or in your personal life? And to what extent do you feel you understand 49 versus 49 on this or any other issue, I would say? And backgrounds is, that you must have an interpretive skill to identify textual ambiguities, like the word vayishlach and na'aleh, as well as understanding the conflicting interpretations of the commentaries on these textual ambiguities. Like, look at what Hirsch said wasn't what Rashbam said, and it was kind of different from Rashi. So these same interpretive skills are critical for reading biblical verses and the news today. So I'd like to invite you, because the whole point of this is not for us to study the book of Numbers, although I love the book of Numbers, but we can each think about an issue today that you wish it would be easier to come to the table on and have the 49 and 49 and be able to be part of that. I mean, there are so many things. Would anyone like to sort of step into that? And no judgment. This is, just something that really touches your heart. Sylvia?
There.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was muted. Thank you. Well, on a personal level, I have this very complicated family, and I have two siblings that one of whom I haven't talked to in many, many years. The other one of whom hasn't talked to me in a few years too. So on the one hand, the person I haven't talked to, I'm not so sure I have a 49 and 49, but on the other one, my sister, I do have that, because she hasn't talked to me in a long time. But she's terminally ill. And so I have reached out to her in a couple of very easy ways. And the last one was that on her birthday, I wished her a happy birthday, which I haven't done in 10 years. Because I know that there is a possibility of some reconciliation. With the other person, I don't think there is. I mean, then it's maybe just still in my head, but I don't think there is. But when we're apart, my sister and I are apart, but there's something that I think that we both want. We just haven't figured out how to get it yet.
Well, that's a really interesting thing. There's something we both want and we haven't figured out how to get it. And thinking about what Hirsch is saying about Moses, going back to the text, one could imagine that what he really wants to do is understand why they're so upset, see how he can shift things to make life more palatable for them, or change what he's doing that he doesn't even know he's doing wrong.
Right.
Like, that's what I want to imagine Moses wants to do with them. And that maybe if they can have that conversation, he can start to really say, look, I hear you. I don't want you. I need your partnership. We're all in this together. We're stuck in the desert for God knows how long, and we're all related. You're from the tribe of Reuben. We're family. It's interesting. So that's beautifully said, Sylvia. Donna?
Good morning. So, yeah, I have a few people that I don't talk about politics to, but they're friends of and family too. But my first reaction to this was that we are still open to commentaries about Torah. And yesterday I attended a program that introduced a new idea, a new commentary called Parshanut. Have you ever heard of that?
Of course. Yes. Oh, I know what Parshanut is. Is there a new commentary called Parshanut?
Yes, it's the book. It's a new book just published this year by a rabbi. And CSP had a program on it yesterday. And
here's the
I
book.
bought it and I started. It was very, it's eye-opening. He writes in a way that is absolutely fascinating.
Who's the author, Donna?
I know.
David
Casher.
David.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe you know more about him than I do, but he just seems like a fresh young light on pulling together commentaries for 2022.
Wonderful. I'm excited to read it. That's great. That's so beautiful. And we need it, meaning we really need to understand texts like this in a way that can inform some of our actions and how we share that with others. Can you imagine if each of us, all 12 of us on this Zoom, were able to sit with 10 friends and say, I've decided not to get so riled up when I hear stuff on the news right away. I've been for 5 years, I've been living, or 8 years, I've been living in a state of anxiety. I'm not going to do that anymore. Every time I find myself in a situation where I feel uncomfortable, I've made this decision, I've made a commitment that I'm going to try to connect with somebody, that person or what I heard that from, and have them share with me why they feel that way. I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying? First of all, it's be almost impossible to do. But if you said that, and if each of us said that to 10 people, and 10 people, you know what I'm saying? That would be a very different way of sort of passing on as we call it, the Beit Midrash way.
My head
really
is here.
I'm really trying to recover.
So is Marcia's in that. I can't get me down.
Okay, Rosalie, hang on a second. Yours.
Okay. Go ahead.
Did you want to share something?
No, I didn't. I just don't know why my head is so high up and I can't get it down. That's all. Wasn't important.
Okay, so so I just wanted to say that this next thing that they were sharing, this gets into the realm of politics. I want to sort of just go over it quickly, but there were 2 articles that were written reporting President Trump's invitation to Stephen Curry in September of 2017, and 2 articles reporting Obama's invitation to NFL co-star Tom Brady in April of 2015. So this is really interesting. The questions are, what are the shared facts mentioned in both articles? What facts and interpretations of facts are unique to each article? And with which article do you identify more and why? And what did you learn? So I thought we could look at those if you were interested. Just because it's sort of, it's so old news. There's so much going on now, but this is part of the curriculum. And Scott, if you want to interject anything that's sort of more relevant, but sort of fits in, it'd be most welcome. And so Trump tweets, going to the White House is considered a great honor for a championship team. Stephen Curry is hesitating, therefore invitation withdrawn. Okay. So Rosalie, would you read this is the first one on the left. After NBA, Stephen Curry rejects Trump's White House invitation. The disgruntled president withdraws it.
Okay. It's a little late to save face. As part of his continuing war on Black athletes, President Donald Trump withdrew his invitation to Golden State Warriors superstar Stephen Curry to visit the White House via Twitter. Less than 24 hours after Trump called former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick a son of a bitch, Trump went after the popular Curry, who had indicated that he might not attend a White House ceremony celebrating the NBA champion Warriors. Going to the White House is considered a great honor for a championship team. Stephen Curry is hesitating, therefore invitation is withdrawn. Wait, let me get it. Trump tweeted Friday night, Friday night, Curry told reporters that he is not a fan of the idea of NBA team visiting the White House, saying, I don't want to go.
Okay, so before we even talk about that, let's read the next one and compare them.
I'll read it.
Okay, go ahead, Sandra.
Okay. Donald Trump this one?
Yeah. Cancels NBA championship invitation to Steph Curry and the Warriors.
Donald Trump abruptly canceled a White House invitation to the Golden State Warriors after Steph Curry signaled reluctance to attend. Going to the White House is considered a great honor for a championship team, Trump said. Stephen Curry is hesitating, therefore invitation is withdrawn. Officially, the team hasn't made a decision about whether or not they would meet with Trump at the White House. Curry bluntly said, I don't want to go, to reporters in Oakland on Friday. Curry said that the team didn't stand for what Trump had said and hadn't said in the right terms, and said that the team wouldn't stand for it. By acting, can you bring it up a little?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. By acting and not going, hopefully they will inspire some change when it comes to what we tolerate in this country and what is accepted and what we turn a blind eye to, he said. Yes.
Okay, so just looking at these, sort of what jumps out at you, and where is the bias of the writer? And just to start speaking, I can't see hands, so Scotty, did you want to say something? You look like you almost opened your mouth.
I'm just saying hello to my mom. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the first one is clearly siding as a Democrat, and the other one is much more neutral and is much more repertorial, if that's the right word, more straightforward. But you can see sort of the author's inherent favoring of the position of Stephen Curry and putting it in the context of Black, the taking a knee movement, Colin Kaepernick at that time, and Trump's embrace of that, versus sort of just reporting it for what it is, right? In terms of Curry a little bit more directly in the second one. You asked before about a more up-to-date issue that I think was, for some reason this came to my mind, which was President Biden's decision to meet with Saudi Arabia this year. And that was such a controversial decision for so many reasons, and it was hard to sort of understand like what to make of that, right? There was different ways to cut that up, and there was a lot of 49 verse 49 in that. If a lot of room for Democrats to be upset about Biden and Republicans to be upset about Biden or supportive, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, didn't mean to take us off base, but.
No, that's actually why we're on. That's actually more relevant than this. I mean, that would be a perfect way. I mean, I'm even thinking about the different, I mean, the way, whatever the debacle was in pulling out of Afghanistan. Why did we do it the way we did? Was it just that we're idiots, or were there so many things that we didn't know? You know what I'm saying? That's where the 49 is. And the 49 comes in, and when someone who's inclined to hate the current administration goes, like, how dare they, these incompetent fools, whatever, would anybody have made that mistake? Perhaps, and again, I think the other fascinating thing would be for those of us who feel very strongly and about just some very strongly about what the challenges this country faced from 2017 to 2020, like, were there good things that came out of that? It's important to be able to say that. And then in a case like this, I just want to put out, like, where's the value? If you're looking at all of Torah laws, how did the conservative movement finally say, you know what, we're going to look beyond sort of a fundamental reading of Leviticus 18, and we're actually going to acknowledge that kavod habriot, respect for all living things, is going to outweigh, and we're going to shift some of our laws on homosexuality. There's two competing laws here, because what that law meant wasn't really what, I mean, I'm putting that out there to you, like, to all of you, just to give you an example. Like, that's what you did. Sometimes there's competing laws, and you have to pick the one that's more important. So one question is the White House the White House, or is the White House the current president? Meaning, if you were inviting Steph Curry, if you were asked to advise Steph Curry, what should you do? One of us, if we thought about it, might say, I know the current president is very hurtful, but this is the White House, and he won't be there forever, and you've been invited, and this is because you actually do care for your country, right? I mean, there could be an argument for saying it doesn't matter that it's Trump, it's that you were invited, right? And there's others saying, no, if you go, you're totally, you're giving a head nod. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's just so many different ways to look at it. I didn't mean to go on. So Sandra, what did you want to share?
Okay, first of all, going back to the two readings, that's the first thing, is that I think the one that I read, the second one, is much more insightful about what's happening in the country, because they're giving the reasoning that it's, because of the anti-Semitism. That is actually what they're talking about. In the second one, more than in the first one, not that, oh, he's not coming because, yes, of course, it's because of anti-Semitism, but they're bringing that as the major reason, not anything,
Well, it wasn't
happening. It's actually what's happening currently in the country.
It wasn't anti-Semitism, Sandra. It was the anti, it was the racism. It was
the racism. Well, that's yes, or the racism, and what you said about Afghanistan. I mean, just jumping around. What happened with us withdrawing with Afghanistan, those things were put in place before Biden went in by Trump.
Right. Well, that would be a piece of the conversation, but it would be absolutely important to talk about why you think that. You could just say that, but really what you want to understand is where that comes from. Well, in fact, this thing that went wrong actually stems from something that was a policy that was implemented a year ago that we didn't know about. I don't even know, but you know what I'm saying? Like, every reaction has a history, and that's just exactly what this is all about. So just to look at the sheet, because we're almost done, President Trump, so what they would invite you to do if we were working in Chavruta, which we're not, but I hope this is meaningful and interesting to you. It is for me personally, very much. You could talk about, what are the additional facts and interpreted facts in Article 1, same 2 in Article 2, and then shared facts. That would be a very fascinating exercise. And if you'd like, I can send you these worksheets in an email so that you can, if you want to wrestle with this more. But let's go a little bit further. So this, and then just so you know,
say that Jack has his hand raised.
Oh, Jack, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you. So I just wanted to back up for a second. did we actually see a rabbinic text that said there are circumstances where we should not meet?
There was, you mean, did we see a commentator who actually sided with Datan and Aviram? Is that your question?
I guess so. Or, I mean, bringing it to the present here, did we see something that supports the idea of saying, no, I won't go talk to somebody with whom I disagree?
In terms of the sources that we've looked at today, it does not, that we haven't seen that explicitly, because really what this whole curriculum is really championing is, even when you think that there's no conversation to be had, there's a conversation to be had. I mean, that's really the goal, that anytime we completely shut our mind out. Now, are there times, like, would anyone want to go reason with Hitler? I mean, I don't mean to say it like that. So we're not talking about that. You know, it's like, oh,
but on that same light, I refuse to have a conversation with somebody who was a Holocaust denier, because to me, that gives legitimacy to a point of view that to me is completely not an acceptable point of view. I don't care how many faces are okay. That's not an okay face for me. And so but I don't know where that's supported here in what we've been looking.
Thank you. I'm going to answer that question. So when in the introductory session of this curriculum, one of the things that they say right up front is that if this is the spectrum of people, there's going to be probably about 13% that are just crazy on this end, and 13% that are crazy on this end. Holocaust deniers would be in that thing. That's not who this is for. This is for this group, because there are people who kind of feel this way and kind of feel this way. Very few people are right in the middle. Those are the saints, right? Who can really understand. But we all have to work because we're wired. I'm wired this way. Somebody's wired this way. You know, so no, you're right. There are times, and the curriculum says that absolutely in the introductory session, you're not supposed to do this with everybody. You don't have to come to the table with people who want to shoot you in the face just because you're Jewish and prove why Jews are good. No, you know what I'm saying, or anything like that. Scotty?
But two things I want to say about that real quick. That one, when you're the president of the United States, it's different because you have responsibility to lead a nation. So when you're dealing with international leadership, you're trying to, you know, when Yitzhak Rabin had to deal with Yasser Arafat, who was a terrorist and murdered lots of people, was responsible for bombings of innocent civilians, hijackings of airplanes. Let's not forget who Yasser Arafat was. But he was the undisputed leader of the Palestinian people. And if you're going to forge a peace agreement in 1992, sorry.
No, it was 95. Scotty, you're on mute now.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about the signing of the Oslo Peace Principles, Declaration of Principles, that started in 92 and it was signed in 93. But anyway, but the point is, you had to deal with that, right? As Prime Minister of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin had to. And I mean, it didn't mean he embraced or endorsed it. And that's different than you or me saying, I'm just not going to talk to a terrorist, you know, which I think I completely am sympathetic to. It is hard to know when to draw that line. I think the other thing I wanted to say was that, now I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay. So, think about it. I just wanted to share with you. Okay, Sylvia, you're calling on you next. When I send you all this sheet, there is something called allsides.com. I don't know if Scott, if you've ever used that, but they recommend this as a way to sort of understand very complicated situations. And then there's something called Open Mind to explore the inner workings of the mind and the psychological mechanisms driving your decision making. So it's just very interesting. Those are both two really wonderful sort of opportunities for us to understand ourselves better, because the better we understand ourselves, the better we can help people we disagree with maybe understand themselves too, right? Because there's nothing like saying, you know, last year I would never have been able to have this conversation, but I've really been able to do some personal work and I can now, and I feel really great about it. You know what I'm saying? So somebody like, oh, that's cool. You know, I don't care. I will never do this, but whatever. So I want to do one more source. Just this is a supplementary source, which I think is excellent. Are you guys up for that? Are we up for a supplementary source? So Sylvia, go ahead. You talk, and then we'll do this last source.
Try to make it quick. There, within Judaism, as far as I understand, there is a kind of an old culture of what you might call today cancel culture. People we don't talk to, beginning with the Amalekites. And now coming down to the rabbis, excommunication. Spinoza was excommunicated because he went beyond the pale of what the majority of the Jewish community thought and took out of Torah. And it's happened again several times. It's very rare, but it does happen.
But
so go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, what were you going to say?
So I'm saying that there is, Jack was saying about not having a conversation with a Holocaust denier, because to him, and to me too, actually, it's that is a stance that's beyond the pale.
Right. And what I was trying to say is that this whole method is not meant for those kinds of extreme, hostile, you know, unreasonable. You know, that it's really the 70% of us in the middle of somewhere who have the capacity to be able to befriend people who are very different than us. I'm just going to share this last thing and talk a little bit about the next session that we'll be doing at the end of January. So what was the difference between the interactions between Datan and Aviram and Moses on the one hand and Hillel and Shammai on the other, according to the following commentary? And Jack, I'm wondering if you'd read this for us.
Sure.
So this is, by the way, so this is from Naphtali Hertz Wesley, and this is you know, late 18th century Berlin.
And Moses sent to call Datan and Aviram, the sons of Eliab, and they said, "We will not come up." Moses wanted to speak to their hearts and to offer them tochacha, and they did not want to listen. And this is great wickedness. And therefore it says right afterwards, and Moses was greatly angered, etc. For he saw that there was no hope that they should repent and that the community could continue to exist together as one. Not like the way the forefathers of the world, Hillel and Shammai, based on Mishnah Eduyot, acted, where one group would listen with their ears to hear the arguments of the other group. And when their words were right in their eyes, they returned to rule in accordance with the other side.
Beautifully said. So, and then it refers to Rashi's comment on number 16 of not holding on to a conflict is based upon, well, first of all, Jack, I want to know what you think about what you just read.
Let me pause. I don't know that I have any great insight.
Okay. So I just want to go through this because we just have a few minutes left, and I'm giving it to you quickly. When Rashi said what Rashi said about not wanting to hold on to a conflict, it really came from Reish Lakish's comment. He's, you know, one of the great characters in the Talmud, on number 16, as number 1625 as opposed to number 1612 as cited. So this question, what might be the significance of Reish Lakish's comment being on number 1625 as opposed to 1612 as commented by Rashi? So I'll just read this. And Moses arose, listen to this, and went to Datan and Abiram. It's what somebody said, come to my tent. Number 16. Reish Lakish says, from here, we derive that one may not perpetuate a dispute. As Rav says, anyone who perpetuates a dispute violates a prohibition, as it is stated, and he will not be like Korah and his assembly. And here's what it says, actually in number 1625. Vayakom Moshe, vayelech el Datan va'Aviram. Moses got up and he went to Datan and Abiram, which is very different than Yishlachotam, summoning them. And so I'd love to know what you think about that.
Well, why is that interpreted so differently when we read it in Hebrew and it said that he summoned them?
They're two different verses. That's what it's saying. It's saying that one verse 13, literally 13 verses later, Moses gets out of his chair and he goes, when they say we won't go up, guess what?
Right.
He goes to them.
He goes down, yeah.
And that's where Rashi came up with his interpretation that he wanted to make peace. He wanted to have a conversation. He wanted to keep the family together and he didn't want it to linger. So we only, if just reading Rashi on 1612, we'd think, God, Rashi's really biased towards Moses, making an assumption we don't know, but we actually put it together because this is a few verses later. Fascinating.
He's also trying to save their lives. Isn't that true? I mean, if I recall the portion, God, he knows that God's going to be so angry at everybody that he better go down and save them. So Moses is trying to save them from themselves, and he succeeds, right? Am I right? Am I right about that?
I think that
they stand away from Korah and they don't die when Korah gets swallowed up.
I think some of them, I think that some of them don't get saved. I think he tried.
Okay.
Because I think he understood that there were different reasons for their disputes, and that that Datan and Abiram might have even had some valid
criticism.
Valid points. For Korah, it was all about ego.
Right.
At least that's how the rabbis interpret it. But it would be interesting to do this. And finally, we have one closing text. I wanted, Rosalind, I don't know if Ros, can you see this? And if so, do you want to read Perushay Rabbeinu Yehonatan Milunil? Can you read this?
You mean Rosalie?
Rosalie.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, anyone who perpetuates a dispute violates a prohibition, meaning anyone who holds on to a quarrel, even if justice is with them, violates a negative commandment. As it is written, Moses rose up and went to Datan and Abiram. And he did not want to hold on to the quarrel, and he went to them in order that they may change their opinion. For if he had not gone there, he would have violated a negative commandment, for he would have held on to a quarrel as Korah, Datan, and Abiram did. And because of this scripture, because of this scripture warns, and he will not be like Korah and his assembly.
Thank you. And then in modern, so taking what that 12th century commentary said, Howard Kaminsky, in his book, Fundamentals of Jewish Conflict Resolution, and you should know that this book exists, Traditional Jewish Perspectives on Resolving Interpersonal Conflicts, and that came out in 2017. Kaminsky says, in other words, Rabbi Jonathan of Lunel is saying that even if someone has been unjustly attacked and enmeshed in a conflict, that individual cannot use this fact as an excuse to perpetuate it. And if the individual should ignore an opportunity for reconciliation, he or she will be held guilty for transgressing the prohibition. That's very strong. What do you think about that? This was hard for me to swallow. I'd love to know. I want to read it again. Even if someone has been unjustly attacked and enmeshed in a conflict, that person cannot use this fact as an excuse to perpetuate it. And even if the individual should ignore an opportunity for reconciliation, and if that individual should ignore, he or she will be held guilty for transgressing the prohibition. How does that strike you?
I guess, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm asking. Oh, Donna,
Donna.
Did you want to share? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, a personal story recently. A very, very good friend of 50 years and I had a silly conflict. And she was mad at me about it. She didn't want to pick them up. But she dragged it on in a public forum with another friend. And I didn't know what to do because this has been a friend of so long. And I think I picked the right answer. I let my angel win. I said to her, all I know is that I really love you and I hope that we can resolve this conflict. And she said, okay. That was the end. And it was not such a serious conflict. It was a behavioral one. She chose to take a particular negative response to something that I assumed she would be fine with, but she wasn't. It's small, it's very small, but it's real. It's how we interpersonally communicate every day.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Donna. That was very, and good for you. Yasher koach to you, truly.
Anyway, Scott, thank you.
Sylvia and then Scott.
What you just read speaks to what could be interpreted as a spiritual answer. And how do you keep your spirit close to God, close to a human being? And one of the things that we're taught in any 12-step program is that even if you're totally right, if that person makes you mad, you're in the wrong, because you cannot grow without resolving a conflict in some way. And it may be that you have to make an amends for your part in it. And the other thing is, in any interpersonal relationship that I've had, it's always 50-50. Somebody does something to me, maybe I react wrong, I will react. If I lose my temper, that is me. That is totally me. And I have to figure out a way to do the thing that Donna did, which is say, I love you, or I'm sorry that I lost my temper. I think it's, I think that reading was very spiritual. So there you go. Thank you.
Beautifully, thank you. And Scott, I'll tell you, you get the last word, and then I'll give you a little hint about next at the end of January. I hope you found this helpful. I even just being with you, I did very much.
I just want to say, like, I love what everyone was sharing about the personal, right, Donna and Sylvia. And I'm thinking about in terms of politics, when I think about this, I'm like, I am so guilty of not, because I hold on to my principles, my partisan views. I'm a lifelong Democrat, and here I am, and it's like, I think at least what this is calling me to do, like, and I do this in my classrooms, in my teaching as a political science professor, is I always have to make room to listen and to hear and to try to, I think that's what, I forget his name, Berinsky or
Kaminsky
was saying. The other thing I want to say earlier that I forgot was that this is so important because I think with the death of, at least the semblance of objective journalism in America, right, that so very few people subscribe and read, well-researched and sourced news articles. Most people are in the opinion news, that news is opinion, right? Like that our kids don't have the wherewithal to look at both sides of the issue, right? All sides of the issue. This is not a skill that our young people are getting. And, you know, whereas you and I may have grown up reading, agreeing on what the facts are, when everybody saw the same facts, and then we could have our own opinions about those facts, but we agreed that this is what was real. Now we have different versions of reality, and it is so important for us to, I love the fact that Judaism has a way to address that, you know, like that our ancient tradition says, no, we are obligated to make room to listen to differing opinions, because that's the only way we can learn.
And that is a perfect way to end this. Thank you. I thank you all for being here. This is a smaller ALI group, but for me, very profound. The recording will be available next week. Next month, we're going to be talking about the title is, I don't love it, Fearing War or Trusting Peace, which, I mean, again, this was created more when we were talking about, like, you know, do we invest all of our money to protect ourselves, or do we really invest money in creating peace partners? I mean, this is more on the Israel, I think the Israel side, but the truth is there's so many, if you look at it in an Uber way, how do you choose to spend your limited time and energy? Do you try to think optimistically and hopefully, or do you cover yourself? And that's again a big part of political discourse today, and what we'll be doing. And we'll probably talk about some, you know, really current relevant issues that are important to us. That's at the end of January. I want to just wish you all a Hanukkah Sameach. Today's the first day of Hanukkah. I should have had my menorah lit, and I didn't. That was silly of me. I mean, but anyway, but I just want to say, all of you are all special to me, and it was just so great to learn together. And there is no ALI next week or the week after. And when we come back in January, we will begin studying the book of Joel with Rabbi David Lazar, and that's going to be really special. We were talking about that class. So I hope you'll join us. And Donna, I'm really excited to look at the Parsha Nut book by David Kasher. He's really smart. So, Hanukkah Sameach, everyone.
Hag Sameach. Don't
Thank
forget
you.
to send us, please.
Hag Sameach. Thank you. This was really interesting. Very good.
Another